Well, what I see happening now is primarily leaders are really distracted. Their energy is really spread thin. And the way that our society is wrapped up in technology and constant moving and go, 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 and you're always looking at your phone and then going back and forth between texts and emails, it's like you're constantly bombarded with stimulation. Their focus internally in their brain, it's actually getting disrupted. So they can't actually focus when they need to because there's just too much stimulation because the brain hasn't decompressed effectively. Of course, that affects them in all kinds of areas because a lot of people who are they don't understand that their brain is addicted to distraction. They don't realize that that's part of it. Dopamine is the reward hormone making you feel good, and it's just stimulation. It's empty. It's kind of like eating empty calories. Like, it's really not good. So when you get
Hi there. Welcome to Business Leadership Podcast. In this episode, I had a discussion with Dr. Jacqueline Campbell. As leaders everywhere face overwhelmed, burnout, and crushing decisions, Dr. Jacqueline Campbell's mission is clear. Revolutionize emotionally intelligent leadership because the hardest person to lead is one in a mirror. After a traumatic childhood, she became a hard, cold Marine. Motherhood changed everything for her. She trained as a mental health therapist, specialized in neuroscience, and built expert techniques, keynotes, and books on self-mastery and overcoming adversity. Her core truth: the real obstacles isn't a life system, it's ourselves. Lead yourself first, and everything else calms down. She's also an author of several books on a similar topic, including her recent Peak Performance with Emotional Intelligence. If you're finding value out of these discussions, don't forget to share, subscribe, and send us your feedback. Your feedback is very important to us. Allow us to focus on the right discussions to help you grow and scale your business. So thank you again for your time. Until next time, please welcome Dr. Jacqueline Campbell. Hi guys, welcome to Business Leadership Podcast. Today our guest is Dr. Jacqueline Campbell. Dr. Jacqueline, in your area of expertise, you've been working with a lot of business leaders, helping them with a lot of challenges. So I'm looking forward to learning from you, looking forward to a discussion. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely, Gurmeet. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today as well.
Thank you. So, you've been working with a lot of business leaders. So let's start from there. What do you see, if you can pinpoint some of the common challenges that people are up against, where do you see some of the challenges that people are trying to deal with?
Well, what I see happening now is primarily leaders are really distracted. Their energy is really spread thin. And the way that our society is wrapped up in technology and constant moving and go, 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 and you're always looking at your phone and then going back and forth between texts and emails, it's like you're constantly bombarded with stimulation. Their focus internally in their brain, it's actually getting disrupted. So they can't actually focus when they need to because there's just too much stimulation because the brain hasn't decompressed effectively. Of course, that affects them in all kinds of areas.
I think that challenges what you just outlined. That's a great point, not only for business leaders, but I think for everybody. There's so many distractions, whether it's digital distraction or something, or something just going on in somebody's life that they just, they have to deal with it, right? So, we all work with a decentralized environment. Some people working at home, some working in an office. So, there's so much going on. I think it's a challenge not only for leaders, but everybody in a company these days. Just so much happening, so much digital, especially with the AI, social media, it's very hard to keep focused.
Yeah. And then when you notice too, whenever you are on something like a computer or there's ads, you can be on an app in your phone, there's other things in the background, they're popping up, there's notifications, there's ads, there's just so many different distractions, even if you only are doing one thing. So being mindful of what's on your screen, that takes a lot of intention.
And the attention span for people is very short as well, right? With the short videos and all that stuff's going on out there, attention span is only a few seconds for people. They especially with the younger generation. I hire a lot of young people. Their attention span is very, very short because they're so used to short videos or reels and that kind of stuff.
Yes, and unfortunately, I don't know if other video platforms are doing this, but I know YouTube does. You have the ability to speed up the video. And I think there was a reading app that you could, I know they do it in the Bible app, but they're trying to make it so that things are going even faster. So if you intentionally don't do that, let things go slow, don't, 2 times or 3 times the speed just to integrate the information faster, Yeah, it's less time, but you're not gathering the information. Your brain just can't receive that much.
And the dopamine hit you get by just scrolling one after another videos, there has a lot of effect on you emotionally because you're just getting a dopamine hit all the time from a wrong places.
That's a good point too, because a lot of people who are not, they don't understand that their brain is addicted to distraction. They don't realize that that's part of it. Dopamine is the reward hormone making you feel good, and it's just stimulation. It's empty. It's kind of like eating empty calories. Like it's really not good. So when you get
Hmm.
dopamine, it's just distracting you. It's not really effective.
Hmm. So, what are some of that impact you see in a business or business leaders that trying to get over some of these challenges? Not only they got to control, they got to help their team to control that as well. They got to teach their teams how to control. So, what are some of the impact you see in a business?
Right. Well, the main impact is them being able to sit with their own thoughts. They can't actually hear the wiser parts of themselves, which are usually quieter in the background because they come out very subtly. Our aggressive, our impatient parts that are very addicted, right? They're usually running the show because we all have different personalities. It's actually different neural
Hmm.
networks in our brain that are controlling our behaviors throughout the day. So when we don't sit with ourselves enough for our brain to decompress and get quiet, the wisest part of us is always locked in the back. So knowing that that's what you need to do, you need to have some quiet time every day. And then that's going to affect your decisions and the clarity that you have. But then what they
Hmm.
need to make sure they're doing for their teams is modeling it. Say it out loud. Say, I'm sorry, I'm only doing one thing at a time. I'll message you, after this time, or this is my communication batching time. I have it on my calendar. And so I've let people know this is when I check my phone. This is when I check my email. I will get back to you. If it's absolutely an emergency, call me, right? Most emergencies are not emergencies,
Yeah.
though. So they need to make
Mm.
sure that it's clear and then tell them why you're doing it so that you can be grounded, so that you can be present, and so that you can focus. Because what happens is when our teams see us do that, they naturally start doing it too because everything comes from the top down. And then once they're starting to do it, then you can implement protocols within the organization and say, what is every organization is different, right? So you can say our culture, supports no distraction time or focus time or making sure that you're present before meetings so you can all do a grounding exercise together before you jump into the meeting. Whatever, however you decide to do it, but you have to model it first. You can't tell HR to create some kind of no distraction zone and you're constantly distracted. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good points you mentioned. It's such a great point. So let me dissect it from a leader standpoint, and we'll talk about the teams. On a leadership side, you mentioned that the wisest part, that focus part. That's especially when you're making a critical decisions. That leaders got to make so many decisions on a daily basis. That's what their role is. When you need to make those critical decisions, or whether you need to work on an M&A or any big transactions, when you're making those decisions, you need that focus. You need to put all the energy into it, and I think that's what you mentioned, that if you don't have that kind of focus, that whether it's emotional intelligence or whatever we call it, you need that focus. But if you don't have, if you're so easily distracted, you're not going to gain that, and that's what I think is going to impact your decision making process.
Exactly. And for them to know, especially in something like mergers and acquisitions, stress is so high. The chances of you having an addictive part of your brain functioning is so much higher because the cortisol is higher. Our defenders, our
Mm.
defense mechanisms, they're parts of our personality. They are running the show when the wisest part of you is stuck in the back. It's actually a part of our brain. It's called the nucleus accumbens, and it gets bigger. The more dopamine, the more stimulation, the more distracted you are, the more impulsive you become when this part of your brain is controlling you. Oh, I see a lot of that in M&A.
Yeah, it's just, especially when the critical decision comes in, right? And I've seen, a lot of business leaders I've worked with, when it comes to whether there's a money involved in a big decisions or simply just a big transaction, there's a lot of stake in that, in that
Yeah.
decision. You see people with a lot of experience. They still kind of, you see palm sweating, and you still, see that hesitation, a lot of stress, goes much higher, right? So they got to deal with that stuff. And I think over the time you get better, but still, it's very stressful, the moment for business leaders when you're not gaining the focus that you need.
Yeah. Well, what you're talking about is that the palms sweating and they actually get very reactive very quickly because the stress is so high. So the defenses are there. And what happens is if they don't know how to regulate their nervous system, which is what manages our
Mm.
emotions and all the other systems in our body, but then money has control over them. If you're going to mess something up in the deal, if you're going to lose money, then you become very defensive and angry. So you don't have control of yourself. And if you're about to get a really great deal, you're about to close it, you get dopamine, which makes you blinded and impulsive. So you get so excited. The euphoria of that also means you don't have control of yourself. When you're
Mm.
mastering your nervous system, and this is what I advocate, you need to master the self, which means you need to neutralize your perspective of money. It comes and it goes. You need to be level and grounded so you can be present when you're making those decisions. And that is extremely hard when it comes to money.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that as well. When I started early on a business, when when you come from corporate world and you're trying to make a decision, if your emotions are so high inside, in you, how could you help other people? And my job was to help other people to make a decisions. But if the emotions are so high in me, how can I help? How could I serve other people? So I think you need to get over that stuff. So over the years, I got a little better, but I wanted to get your take in it. So what can somebody do if they want to get better at it? They want to control more the emotions so they are in a full capacity to serve others, to help others to make decisions. So how do they start? How do they work on themselves?
And that's a great question because most business to owners who they feel like, well, I don't have any of that problem, right? They might be suppressing it, which means it's still there. It's just complete. It's called
Mm-hmm.
dissociation, where our mind is completely separated from our body. And that disconnect neurologically is damaged, which means they're not aware that they're not aware, which is even harder. The good thing is, like you said, the nervous system is very, very resilient. It can heal itself. And even though there's been what's called pruning, which is a disconnection and neurological integration in your brain and body, it can repair it. So what they need to do is set an intention when they realize that. Let's do two different examples. One, let's say they are emotionally reactive,
Okay.
right? You either get defensive and or you get impulsive. Right. These are the people who there's not so much damage. So it's still connected because they're still aware. So they need to set some time to sit alone, have a journal next to them, and actually close your eyes, go into your nervous system, bring up the worst part about the situation. Ask yourself, and you're digging. So the sensations could get worse. That's a good thing. Your nervous system knows how to heal you, but it needs to guide you. And then ask, okay, well, how does this make me feel about myself as a person? What limiting belief is it bringing up? I'm being taken advantage of. Negative things that none of us like to focus on. You have to focus on it.
Yeah.
Let the emotions get bigger. And then ask yourself, when's the very first time in my life I ever remember feeling like this? It usually goes back to something emotional. It was either an actual trauma in your childhood, sometime that you failed, so an emotional wounding. Those situations, they're embedded in our nervous system and they're literally running the show right now. You just don't realize it. It creates a filter. Once you deal with
Mm-hmm.
that, you can either work with a coach, do some somatic work. You can do some emotional releasing. There's plenty of resources out there if you look up somatic work. Let your nervous system do the work on that issue, then come back to the present situation and reevaluate it. Chances are there's not going to be
I
so
see.
much emotional reactivity in the body.
So you mentioned somatic work. That's the term that somebody needs to look up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somatic
So
releasing.
this is okay. This is an area that takes a lot of hard work. I think it takes a lot of practice as well over the time, and plus, getting to revisit, whether the childhood issues or whatever the issues you're dealing with. But I think it takes a lot of practice, and this takes a lot of hard work, and I think that's what a lot of people shy away from, the hard work it takes to get better at it.
Absolutely. And that's unfortunately, it causes one, it takes time. And two, it does cause pain. You have to dig into it, which nobody wants to feel bad, right? But it makes you more
Yeah, yeah.
effective in the present if you confront those situations. The other thing is if you are the type of person who you are disconnected and you don't feel any of those negative emotions, you're like, I don't know what people are talking about. I have no problems. I have no negative emotions when it comes to big, hard decisions. Those types of situations, ask the people around you. Do you feel like I'm present? Do you feel like I'm
Mm.
emotionally attentive? Do you feel like I'm disconnected from my emotions? If you ask the trusted people around you, they might have more to say, especially somebody like your spouse or your children. because they see the real you.
Yeah.
Assistants, those are good people to ask. The people who are cultivating like culture, right? Not necessarily a business coach, but more like a leadership coach. Ask them. They are usually more attentive to their emotions because they're developing people, and people always have emotions. So if you ask one of them what they think about your emotional capacity, then you might find out you might be a little too impatient. You might not be present, which means that your system is just disconnected. It needs the repair, which means those individuals need to sit alone with themselves for a little while and dig into those emotions even more because it physiologically needs to repair itself.
Got it. So not connecting is an issue, but is there a challenge that too much connection, that you were too connected and any too emotional? Could that be challenge? Does it work the both ways, or just not connection is a challenge?
No, you're absolutely right. Sometimes, and then these I usually find with visionary leaders that I'm one of them. I'm a highly sensitive person, and so I feel everything. It's horrible. So what
Mm,
I needed, one, because I'm a visionary, which means your brain is more creative, it's more detail oriented, so you automatically just bring in a lot of information, which is too much stimulation. We actually need to close up, contain, and practice actually dismissing, saying, okay, well, it's going to be fine, or
mm.
I'm overthinking. I need to calm that down. That's what those individuals need. And there's a lot of visionary leaders out there. They're usually the owners and founders of very impact driven companies. The ones that are more disconnected from their emotions, I find those ones, they're usually chasing the big sell. They're usually just wanting the high ROI. It's not really impact driven. So there's more of an emotional disconnect from, well, they're just employees, fire them, get new ones. That kind of mentality. Now, I don't find a lot of that, but that it does exist.
Yeah, especially the technical people, they are logical people, right? If you have an engineering degree or any science degree, you're taught logic all your career. So you're gonna look at everything from logical standpoint, may not be as emotional standpoint.
Absolutely. And you have a really good point because they might be disconnected and not know it, but not have done it intentionally. They're just very technical, logical
Hmm.
people. With those individuals, if they dive into the inner workings of the somatic work, which is your nervous system clearing itself, they might find it very interesting because it is very
Mm.
technical.
Yeah. I didn't understand clearly the way you explained, Jacqueline. But all I felt was emotions going up and down when I was in those critical
Yeah.
decisions. And somebody taught me that write down on somewhere where you can read that. So I used to write on my hand. Every time I'm sitting in a meeting, I will read my hand. Okay, keep the emotions down, right? So over the time you practice that way, that you just you learn how to control some of that stuff, right? But I think it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of practice to get better with these things.
It does. And those little tricks and the mindfulness that you're practicing, being aware of when they surface, they really do help. Sometimes the littlest things make a huge
Yeah.
difference.
Got it. So let's talk about the teams. What can business leaders do definitely it's one of those sensitive challenges that you don't want to overstep when you trying to train your team or help them get over these challenges. What can business leaders do? How do they handle these challenges?
When you say how do they handle these challenges, which ones do you mean?
How do you train your staff to get better on how to control emotions?
Right.
There's a lot of leaders deal with a lot of challenges on a daily basis, a lot of team challenges, and most of these challenges are around emotions or focus and or anxiety. These challenges these days, especially we now working in the same environment. Some people could be working overseas, and we talk to them same way you and I talking over the camera. You really don't have a good grip on what's going on, but you need to help them and help them to understand and practice these items. How do they help them?
Right. Having emotional intelligent leadership certification programs, or there's a lot of wellness programs out there, but they're also very general. Emotional intelligence is different than wellness, right? So making sure that you
Hmm.
differentiate that, but then making sure that your culture, like your leaders, are emotionally intelligent. That's already going to make a huge difference because they get to mentor what we do to ourselves, we naturally do to the people around us. So if your leaders are emotionally intelligent because you've had them do a certification program or a course, something like that, which really does help them do the work, and then you're already modeling it for them to be more aware and attentive to their deeper, I would say, limitations, because of all of that is our wounding that we need to kind of get out of there. because it's affecting the business culture, right? Then they're going to naturally be able to mentor the younger team or the junior team as they're navigating.
Okay, very interesting. So yeah, definitely, especially the younger generation. I hire a lot of young workforce in my business. Definitely if you give them any instructions, they're not looking for any data because they have a lot of information. It's not that they need information, but they need somebody to model the behavior. They want to follow that. That's much easier for them to follow instead of just giving them information or some knowledge.
Right. Something else that's really effective when you start a meeting, if you check in with the team on how they're doing before you check in with the team on the to-dos, right? So make sure that you have a separation, and you can even time it. Like, everybody gets 2 minutes. I want to know what's going on in your life. I want to know how you're feeling today, anything coming up for you, because the staff that has to, let's say they have to hire 4 new people, right? Today, let's say it's an HR representative and you're talking to them and you're asking them what's going on with the hiring process. And they just had their parent die the night before, or their child got diagnosed with cancer yesterday. Like situations like that, you have no idea the type of nervous system that you're talking to right now, if they can even hear you, because they might be dealing with this in the background. Not to mean that every leader needs to be a therapist. That's not what I'm saying. But know your people, know what's going on in their life, be aware at a present for them. And let's say the first 2 minutes of every meeting, I want to go in and everybody gets 2 minutes to, check in what's going on in your life. What you've done is, 1, you've let them know you care. 2, you've made yourself aware of what's going on. And 3, their brain gets to decompress. Because if you ask me how I am and I say I'm fine and we keep moving forward and I'm not fine, my brain is still in that present moment. So the information that we're now talking about doesn't integrate into my brain. So there's all kinds of miscommunication because I have this huge emotional blockage. I need to get that out first. So it's a chance for them to just say it out loud. It's called catharsis, where it's healing because it's released because they talk about it. And they don't even have to go super deep. They just have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and then they can go to the next person, right? So just putting your stuff out there, which means that you have to be open to vulnerability.
Yeah, and normal response from anybody, if you ask somebody how you doing, everybody's gonna say fine, unless you follow up and dig a little deeper. Otherwise, everybody's gonna be fine until you give them the time and attentions that they need to express.
Absolutely. So you're actually creating an emotionally safe atmosphere by integrating something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And with an emotionally safe atmosphere, there's more authenticity. So there's more honesty. So again, our brain waves actually cannot sync up with people if we're not honest. Our defenders are there, which actually creates a cognitive blockage. So if I want to have an open and honest conversation with you, with really good communication, which everybody wants good communication. We don't want bad communication. We actually need open and vulnerable nervous systems, because it opens the brain to integrate information.
Very interesting. So let's talk about your journey, Jacqueline. So how did you got interested in specialize in this and helping people in this area?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. I definitely had to learn the hard way. I didn't just, become an expert on the nervous system because I wanted to, right? It was definitely a journey for me. I grew up in a very unstable home, and there was physical, sexual, and violent traumas. It was generational trauma passed down. So every parent does the best that they can with what they have, right? But because the environment was the way it was, I got very, very hardened, and I was very cold, very aggressive. And as a woman, it's not authentic to me. So I was working security in the Marine Corps, and I just was very rough. So when I got out, I was headed towards law enforcement, but I was taking psychology courses to better understand criminology. And that's when I realized I had issues that I really needed to work on. So after I went into therapy, I, took more psychology courses. I changed my major to go into counseling. And I spent 15 years studying the nervous system and how to heal trauma. So I actually ended up working with a lot of business owners who had unresolved trauma. It was messing with their relationships at home, with their business decision and their performance at work. And they're the ones that convinced me to come do this in the professional development sector.
Very interesting. Did you gain a perspective from Marine? How long did you serve in the Marines?
6 years.
Nice. Thanks for service.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
did you gain a different perspective by serving in the Marines? Like, did that give you a different perspective? Because it's a lot of physical challenging environment, right?
It is. It is. I actually have my program is called Peak Performance with Emotional Intelligence because when I was in the Marine Corps, it was very rough. It was very aggressive, and you just suck it up and you push through because you have an objective. And so even if that objective is impossible, you're still required to make it happen. So you not only become very resilient, but very resourceful. And so like you're thinking fast with all that cortisol running through your body, and it's very detrimental to the body to stay like that. The difficulty that business owners have is that they didn't have the other half. The military is starting to implement some of these strategies to be more emotionally intelligent as well, because they see that it's physically damaging to the body to have that much cortisol and to put that much pressure on the brain. But the whole point is that peak performance is actually the left hemisphere of our brain. It's logical, it's rational, it can focus, it definitely charges towards its goals. And we love that as business owners. But the right hemisphere of the brain, it's intuitive, it's creative, it's detail oriented, and it moves very slow. It's kind of chaotic because it's emotional. But that gives you a whole developed brain. And most people are not fully developed, because you haven't gotten the internal balance to get access to both these hemispheres.
Yeah. I mean, business leaders or people who are in decision making, roles, they can learn so much from it. They'll make a much better decision if they can understand a little bit better and get a help from somebody like you to, simply, that the area that impacts, what one of the item I see is when there's a stress level, there's emotions not stable in a business leader's area, they make no decision. They kind of freeze, right? And very often not making decision is also a decision that you didn't make a decision, and there's a cost for it.
It is. Sometimes you hurt people and sometimes you hurt yourself and sometimes it's money, but you're absolutely right. What I tell people, and I still have to practice this because I'm still human, is when there's a decision and you don't have clarity and you either want to run away from it, run towards it impulsively, or you freeze, what you need to do is do some breath work and calm your nervous system and decompress it. And then just sit in silence for just a few minutes. I'm a meditator because that's where I get my best insights is right after I meditate. It's like it clears everything and the answer always surfaces. But we can't find it by freaking out. We definitely can't make decisions with cortisol, which is your stress hormone running through our body.
Yeah, because not making decision is also a decision itself, right? So, and it has a huge impact. Some of the time it says because if you have so many people dependent on you, the company is dependent on you, not making decision has a huge financial impact.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Well, if they're looking for me, Dr. Jacqueline Campbell is my website. But if they're a business leader and they have leadership teams and they're really interested in emotional intelligent leadership training, visionexpansio.com is the business website. I primarily engage with people on LinkedIn though too.
Got it. I'm going to include a link to all, your LinkedIn page and the website below the video as well. People can click a button and they can reach out to you. As business leaders, we work on so many different items. There's so many, areas we need to focus on, and there's so many blind spots. And this is an area where a lot of business leaders, I know my colleagues, we could all use a help. And so I'll definitely recommend all business owners listening or watching our podcast to click a button below and reach out to for conversation. Who knows? There's always new perspective. I learned so much from our conversation. I'm sure whoever reaches out to you, they're going to learn a lot from you as well. Any word of wisdom, people who want to go on this journey, they want to work at, get better at it. Where can they start from? Something small they can start and then they can progress from there. Any word of wisdom you want to leave for them?
Absolutely. What I would say is if somebody wants to start it right now, yes, implementing it into your business, you want your leaders to evolve. That's great. You want them to do better, be better, but you can't do that with them if you don't do it with yourself, first. So what I would say is something to do to start small right now is really spend time with yourself. Listen to the thoughts that are going on in your mind. Pay attention to your body. So increasing mindfulness, and you can practice mindfulness for 5-10 minutes a day. There's even YouTube videos that you can look up so you can listen and get guidance on how to be more mindful. As you are naturally increasing your mindfulness of your body and your thoughts, your nervous system is going to start teaching you. Because I always say, I'm just the trainer. I'm teaching you how to use your nervous system. It's actually the coach. And it's so much of a better coach than I could ever be, right? or any other trainer or coach for that matter, because it's inside you and it can show you the blind spots.
Yeah. And controlling your thoughts probably one of the difficult things you can ever do, right? So, thoughts come in and like every second you get a new thoughts. But, controlling the thought process, just, calming your mind is probably I find is one of the very difficult challenges.
Right. Absolutely. I personally have a goal for the next, few years. My main goal is to master silence because it is one of the hardest things, but I want to be able to turn my brain off and sit, and I can do it for a few minutes at a time, but I've been meditating for years, but I want to be able to do it for an extended period of time. Just one of those cool challenges, I'm sure it's going to keep me on my toes.
Yeah, but if you do that, once you finish with that, silence the brain, then that's where a lot of creativity comes in. A lot of creative ideas come after that. Once you accomplish that.
Absolutely, yes, and mastering the self is the hardest thing, right?
Yeah, a lot of hard work. Well, thank you so much for your time. I want to appreciate the time. I know we are short of time, so thank you so much. There's so much to learn from you. We hope we'll talk in the future sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Hi there. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you find a value out of these discussions, don't forget to like, subscribe, and send us your feedback. Your feedback is very important to us. Allow us to focus on the right conversations to help you grow and scale your business. And don't forget to watch our other discussion on a similar topics. You can simply search or just browse by the playlist like we created for you. Enjoy. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon in the next episode.